Welcome. Hello, welcome to the DS2 versus To Pimp a Butterfly debates. This is Zulu Cast episode 6. I am your host, Alan, and today I am joined by my host, Shane. Max.
What's up?
Theo.
Hey yo.
And Creek.
Hi.
Before we get started, before we get into it, it's time to address the recent controversy.
Yes.
In the last episode, Shay, you said something very controversial and offensive to people of the Islamic faith. And
I said something.
It stirred up a lot of conflict in our community. So if you wanted to resolve the very hurtful things you said about people of that faith, now's the time to do so.
I love you guys. I got some good Muslims. Did that sound bad? I think that sounds like religiousist. Like, oh, I'm not racist. I got black friends. Like, I feel like I'm doing that with but no, I think Islam's a very interesting belief. It's a system, a religious system that I've definitely.
Oh, he's stumbling over his words.
No, I'm not perfect.
You should have never said it. You should have never. If you were gonna.
I apologize.
If I offended anybody,
if I offended anybody,
I didn't even tell him this, guys, because I want to hold him accountable. Shane.
Yeah, it's not what you were saying yesterday, Shane.
Whoa.
We were all here.
I'm here for some albums. I did not say anything. I got people.
You're getting called out. You're getting called. We're holding your feet to the fucking fire. We were all playing Fortnite yesterday, and you doubled down, Shane.
I did not.
But when the cameras and the lights get on, you want to take it back.
No. Do you want to know how I know that's not true? You want to know how I know that's not true? It's because I don't even play Fortnite. So I can't
Not the gaslighting.
I play Warzone. You guys play Fortnite.
This is typical
narcissist
behavior.
You guys may be little babies that play your Fortnite. I get a build. You might be those type of people, but I'm not. So I'm sorry, but
Stop the gaslighting, bro.
He's not taking accountability for his actions.
Bro, I'm here to talk about some albums, bro. What are we doing?
Okay. We'll get to that. We don't have to talk about this, but I'll also say that the thing you said about George Floyd, unnecessary. Completely unnecessary, inappropriate.
I said I think he was a good man who didn't deserve it. You're the one who was over there talking.
And unempathetic. Anyways, today we're talking about albums today. We're talking about DS2.
Dirty Sprite
by
2.
Future. A classic, a beautiful album that changed my life, turned me Christian, it made me straight edge, it helped me find myself. I didn't know who I was before listening to this album. And on the other coin, we have DS2. DS2. Then on the other hand, we have To Pimp a Butterfly.
Yeah.
This is his fourth best album, in my opinion. I think his other albums.
Best.
No, I'm kidding. Okay, look. I'm kidding. Okay, it's his worst album. But the thing about this album is, this album took me on a bad path. I got addicted. to opioids. Because I didn't want to look bad for y'all. Y'all had me scared of myself, of my vision. The Pimp a Butterfly drove it. No, okay, let's be for real. DS2, defending DS2 today is me and Max. We are DS2 lovers. And then on the other side of the fence, we have DS2 haters. The Pimp a Butterfly lovers. In this section, we have Creek, Leo, and Shane.
You got who? You got. Hold on. I'm just letting y'all know. How I feel about it. Like DS2 is a decent project. It's not bad, right?
Yeah,
it's not bad. It's a good album. It's a good
6 out of 10. It's a good 6 out of 10.
But I just want to say, the barbershop's been talking about who's the greatest. Kendrick, Jigga, and Nas. That's all I'm saying, yo. Control verse, bro.
The barbershop speaks.
That is true. The debate, the GOAT conversation was J. Cole and Kendrick 20 years ago. now it's Lil Pump and Soulja Boy. I think Soulja Boy is edging it. Anyways, before we get to the open discourse section of this podcast, let's first have brief discourse about how we individually interpreted the albums without challenging each other, okay? So we're going to say how we felt about them, And until they give us the get-go, we are not allowed to attack each other's beliefs yet, okay? We got to be open other belief systems for 5 to 10 minutes. And then we could be inconsiderate. So I think the people who enjoy DS2 should first explain why they enjoyed DS2. How they felt about DS2, whatever. I enjoyed DS2 because it's pleasing to the ears. And I think that's all I can say for it. I reviewed all the tracks individually. There's not like any song I thought was below a 7 out of 10, except for Freako. I think to listen to this album, you have to experience it. And you can't be like watching the album, waiting for something to spark your interest. You kind of have to allow the album to take over you. Meaning, I feel like people who are antagonistic to this album or maybe don't enjoy it, listen to the album and they're waiting for something to pop out. Like they're listening to it and they hear Future say something and they're like, how is that? Like, whatever, bro, that's corny. Like they hear Future say, I don't care if they were real sisters. Some shit like that. and they're like reactive to it, like, oh, he's saying da-da-da-da. This is not an album about introspection of a lifestyle. This is an album that is purely about lifestyle. So you can listen to it, then allow the experience of that lifestyle to take over. Whereas To Pimp a Butterfly is more of a introspection about variations of lifestyles. I'll get more into that when we talk about To Pimp a Butterfly. My whole thing on this is I enjoy it because I think I know how to listen to it. And I have an adaptive trait with music. Like I can learn to appreciate different styles of music, and I approach styles of music like almost like putting myself in the energy I would have to be in to enjoy said music. And I think if you can't allow yourself to experience this album, then it's purely because you don't know how to let it land upon you. And I'm not even going to get into that. I have an overarching theory about people who enjoy To Pimp a Butterfly, but I'll keep it at that. I like the album because it's pleasing to my sensibilities. And I think that's pretty much the only criteria there should be as to whether or not music is enjoyable. And you guys could just make the argument that like it's not enjoyable to my sensibilities, but I think that there's I think that there's explanations for sensibility, and I think sensibility is something that can grow and something that can change over time. And for it to be so adaptive, I think there's cues that we can infer that act as the spark for you enjoying something, and we'll get into that later. And I say all that to say that if you say that you just don't like how it sounds, I think that there's an argument to be made that there's an inner block to you enjoying it. And I would say that it may stem from you not understanding how to control and maneuver your subjectivity in general. But I could just be projecting because I like the album, and it's weird to me that other people don't like the album. That could be like as simple as it is. We'll discuss theory later. I like DS2 because it sounds good. Max, why do you enjoy DS2?
I would agree that it sounds very good. As like that's the thing about it, is that I think it encapsulates like a vibe. Like that's how I describe DS2, and I think like every single beat on that album is like near perfect, and I don't even think Future has like a bad performance on the album. But what I will say is both these albums are great from a production standpoint. Like I enjoy the production on both albums. I just feel like To Pimp a Butterfly is like just too conceptual, and it's just trying to be something like too much, and I feel like it loses itself because of that. But yeah,
we'll go specifically into Pimp a Butterfly. I think something that we could do, as we just say like how we feel about it before the debate part of the episode, is we could just say like what our like favorite song or favorite like 2 tracks were. My favorite couple tracks, it's like 3. It's Percocet and Stripper Joint, Brit Sex, and I Serve the Bass. That was my standouts. And Groupies. Groupies is amazing. Max, what is like your favorite tracks or the standout tracks to you on DS2?
Okay, I like Slave Master and Thought It Was a Drop. I think that is one of the like Future always has great openers, and I think it's just a perfect opener to the album. So
Okay,
those would be my
and then Detractors. Tell me what your experience of DS2 was/is, and tell me what your favorite track or favorite couple tracks from the album was.
Us who aren't like in favor of it.
Yeah.
So when I first listened to it, I enjoy it, you know. My overall opinion is just like it's a fun album, has a couple good hits, you know, just very nice to listen to for a while. And tracks, let's see what my favorite track is. It seems like it is Thought It Was a Drought at 8 out of 10. No, it's Where You At. Oh, Where You At is a great song. 9 out of 10 with Drake. Yeah, that song goes crazy. Just a very catchy hook. Drake goes crazy. Future, I feel like they both execute their verses very well. They made it just very fun. Yeah, Where You At is that? Yeah, very nice. Yeah.
We gonna copyright the strike because Creek got a list.
So overall, then my negative, like there was a lot of tracks on here that just seem kind of like filler tracks to me. Like they're just not very significant. But you said that, but I do get that kind of aesthetic for DS2. But some just kind of like basic production to me, which it can be really cool. But I just hear a lot of basic like kind of trap beats I've kind of heard before. You know what I mean? So that's just how I felt. Kind of just like a lot of mediocre trap beats on this. But some songs have some crazy ass trap beats. So there definitely are. There's some good highs to this album, but the lows are pretty bad. That's how.
What are like the most noticeable lows to you? What tracks?
Lows. It looks like Rotation seems like to be the worst song I have here. Freako is pretty bad. Stick Talk is bad. Yeah, Blow It Back, Slave Master. Those are all like 5s, it looks like. Yeah, you know, I guess they were just like mediocre to me. Like it just didn't really spark my attention or just spark anything. Yeah. I guess like I feel like the hooks just weren't that well. I don't even want to say written, but like the melodies, I guess, for the hook. Like it's just not like Where You At. Like I think Where You At is like a perfect hook, I guess, and like or Thought It Was a Drought. I thought that was like a very good hook. I just feel like it wasn't written as well for like the party kind of fun song on like Freako or something. You know what I mean? Kind of like lazy, but yeah, that's how I felt.
Yeah, Creek and Shane.
Creek, you want to go? Or you want me to go?
You can go ahead, Shane.
Okay, so, DS2 isn't bad. I think it's a decent project. I'll say my 2 favorite songs are definitely Awkwardly Enough, because you know my companion who's on my side here disagrees with me. I think my 2 favorite songs are probably I Serve the Bass and Rotation. I thought Rotation's dope, but that's just me. Yeah, it's a dope vibe-driven album. I do think there's some down flaws. I think there's a lot of filler here. I do think it's a really good project, but that's within the aspect of why it was created, and I do think it's to create quote unquote a vibe. But my question, or I feel like vibes, you know, I don't know if this completes the vibe. I feel like there's ups and downs throughout it, so that's just me though.
Creek.
So I'll just start off with my favorite track on DS2, which was I Serve the Bass. Just because of how creative the beat
was. Favorite.
Yeah, just because of how creative the beat was, as opposed to just like the fact that it was a Future song. Overall, I think the album was pretty shit, honestly. I mean, it's fun to listen to, but like the thing I would compare the enjoyment of this album to is like you know when you go to like Ben and Jerry's and they have like a really good ice cream, and you're like, wow, this is like a really good ice cream, but it's like vanilla. It's really good, but there's nothing new. There's nothing novel about it. It's just really good. They've like perfected the craft of making this vanilla ice cream, but there's like nothing surprising about it. It's just fine tuned to become like the perfect piece of vanilla ice cream that there is. So that's exactly how I feel about this album. It's like there's nothing new about it. It's perfect. It's perfectly bad. That's like It's just like that's what I,
Perfectly
it's like
vanilla.
yeah, perfectly vanilla. Like there's nothing that stands out about it, and like in comparison to like my what's it called, to Pimp a Butterfly, which is I wouldn't say it's imperfect, but it's like a lot more exploratory. It's like more creative. It like attempts to like break walls, and like I mean, who's to say like that's what makes good music? But in my opinion, that's the sort of music that I personally would gravitate towards, as opposed to a piece of like a trap album that was like perfected to be like one of the best trap albums. But it's it's just nothing interesting or unique about it.
I do want to give DS2 a little bit of credit because this came out in 2015. So like it was a little bit ahead of the curve, you feel, as far as like this kind of trap goes. So I give it a couple extra points because so DS2 would be like a 3 or 4 for me if this shit came out in like 2018. You know what I mean? But since it came out in like 2015, like it was a little like that. I give it like a little bit of a bump. I just want to make that point. Like, I think it was like a little bit ahead of the curve on like trap music for 2015.
I definitely think it's inspirational to a lot of modern trap.
For sure.
I'll give you that.
I don't know is a good thing because I don't really like modern trap. It's very future cloney. So is that really a good thing? You know what I mean? But I don't know. Yeah.
It seems everybody wants to be antagonistic. So Alan, should we just get?
Did you say your excerpt about it, Shane?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, yeah.
Like 2 songs.
Yeah. So I had a lot of things there that I have refutations to or want to challenge, but I'm conserving that. So what I ask you guys is I'm gonna say some controversial takes on To Pimp a Butterfly and delay gratification before you debunk me and prove me wrong when I get to my points about To Pimp a Butterfly. Okay?
Prove him wrong.
I
subjectivity.
I have some controversial opinions on it, but that was that's how we all feel about DS2, whatever, just so everybody knows. Let's talk about how we feel about To Pimp a Butterfly, and we'll have the people that are pro To Pimp a Butterfly go first. Guys, tell me what you think of To Pimp a Butterfly. Tell me your standout tracks. Let me know how you feel.
All right, I'll go with my standard. So I think this is my favorite Kendrick song. Probably is Hood Politics. It's just this perfect fusion of funk and oh man, it's just beautiful jazz. Oh man, just very like explosive drum. I don't know how they made this shit. I can't even wrap my brain around it. King Kunta. Oh man, just a perfect like bubbly.
I was like low key disassociative. What did you say was your favorite one?
Hood Politics, and I'll just run through them. Hood Politics, King Kunta, and Mama Said probably. Yeah. Probably for free. Anyways, yeah. So why I like To Pimp a Butterfly? It's just this beautiful fusion of a poet, jazz, hip hop, experimentation, questioning flaws of his environment. I don't even know how to describe. I can't even comprehend this shit still. Shoot, I love it. Talks about. Sure, I'm gonna pass this one over. Honestly, but Shane, I'm gonna pass this one over to you.
You're good.
Well, yeah.
My 2 favorite songs in this whole project. It would be 3, but the live version, I think is not as good as the studio version personally. But because it's not on there, I'm gonna give you just the 2. It's definitely How Much a Dollar Cost and You Ain't Gotta Lie. Mama Said. First of all, Mama Said is a beautiful song that I think it commends both styles of rap, at least within my mind. And when I say that is I don't mean to just narrow rap down into 2 different subgenres because it's so much broader than that. I'm gonna sound mad real hip hop as I say this, and I was trying not to, but I think it invokes the idea of vibe and evokes the idea of artistic. Sometimes I think those can mutually coexist, and sometimes I think people try to make them coexist and they don't. You Ain't Gotta Lie and How Much a Dollar, or You Ain't Gotta Lie in specific is a song that does that so beautifully. It's a song you could toss on with the homies and just vibe. It reminds me almost of a cookout, but then lyrically and emotionally, it's super connecting. And so I think that's something that this album does well. And at first it was a very big issue with the point that I was going to try and come into debate with. I was going to try and be like, okay, well, I think DS2, that's such a vibe album. So I wanted to like view this album from such a vibe album. But as we listen to it, it seems the intro tracks are so heavy on trying to grab you in and grab your attention. And I feel like the issue that a lot of people have with that is that they don't want to listen to music that way. And that's fine. Subjectively, listen to music however you want. But it's like this album, you're either going to be closed off to that and write it off, or you're going to just succumb to it. And if you succumb to it, I think you're going to be like surprised and enjoy the journey.
Mm-hmm. I also like this is a very vulnerable and like passionate album too. Very like on You, he's literally like questioning his conflicts. The story is like fuck, I forget the story. Anyways, we're gonna pass this over to Creek.
Yeah, I don't have much to say. My favorite track is probably You, just because of how emotional and how vulnerable he is on that track. And it's just an overall awesome track. But to Pimp a Butterfly, I think Leo said best. Like it's just like it's a journey. You know, it's like if you've like listened to all the like previous albums from Kendrick, it's just like a natural progression towards that album, and it just makes sense, and it's like full of like I don't know, it's just full of emotion. It's super authentic, and I think it's like a really great piece of work.
Okay. Max, how did you feel about To Pimp a Butterfly?
Okay, so like when I was first getting into like rap and shit, like this was one of the first albums that I listened to, because I mean I feel like this is an album people regard as like one of the best. And so I was like pretty blown away by it when I like initially got into rap, but then I kind of figured out more what I was into, and I realized like this just isn't so much for me. But I mean there are like, okay, so my two favorite tracks on there are probably Alright and Wesley's Theory, like the intro track. But I would never say this is like a bad album. It's just not something that like I feel like I could like listen to, or a lot of the tracks that I could like listen to every day, or like I don't know, have in my rotation a ton.
Yeah. All right. I didn't give an analytic commentary of DS2 because the intention of DS2 is not to inspire an analytic commentary. I do think that the intention of To Pimp a Butterfly is to inspire an analytic commentary, and I think To Pimp a Butterfly stands on the ground of narrative. So when we communicate about To Pimp a Butterfly, we're not really talking about like, does the song sound cool? On a certain level, we are, because if it didn't, then, like, would we really engage with it at all? But what makes the song special, not in my opinion, but what other people tend to say from my POV, is what makes the album special is how each song has a specific meaning or represents a narrative. I didn't do this with DS2, but I think I'm going to give a quick commentary of the track list of To Pimp a Butterfly. I feel it's necessary. It's not so much a commentary on, like, the concept of each song. It's not me communicating the meaning. It's, like, my interpretation or the commentary that I had of his commentary within the song. So, let's go through the track list. Wesley's Theory, I gave a 6 out of 10. Oh, I'll real quick say my favorite song on the album is Alright and Mama Said. I think they're like the most subtle. I think they do what he's intending to do in the best way, those two. Wesley's Theory, I gave a 6 out of 10. And the note that I wrote on this one is I said, I know that a lot of people would think the instrumentation of this track is like special. And perceive it as like groundbreaking, that there's this much instrumentation happening, and think that it's impressive. I just said cohesively it doesn't sound good, though. Like, the instrumentation sounded shit on Wesley's Theory to me. But it was, like, carried by the concept. For Free, I gave a 3 out of 10. And I said it's cool that he's representing the value dynamics of hookup culture. But I don't listen to music for concepts. And that didn't sound good. So the concept of that is not going to carry me through the fact that shit just did not sound good. King Kunta, I gave here's a controversial one, 0 out of 10. I dislike the song And I feel like people who like this song are like, but it is a vibe. And I feel as if people who listen to this song and perceive it to be a vibe are almost like looking for songs and trying to gauge if the song, like if they're allowed to vibe to the song, like if the artist who made the song has enough acuity for them to vibe with the song, because they hear it and it's like this like funk type thing, and they're like, oh, this is a vibe, but it's mediocre in comparison to other funk that's done well. It sounds cartoony and corny. Institutionalized, I gave a 5 out of 10. I like some aspects of the song. It's all over the place. One thing I have to compliment Kendrick on, though, is he has a total poise and command over himself vocally. And he's able to come at a song with so many different perspectives, and he's able to emote in a variety of ways. And that's impressive. The people who like Kendrick tend to be people engaged in intellect. I would go as far as to say tend to be people engaged in mental masturbation, but we'll get to that aspect of the debate because I do have that as a talking point. But anyways, we'll just say intellect. People who enjoy this album tend to be engaged in intellect, and those people are also impressed by Kendrick Lamar and his poise, and that's like one of the things they say that act as an aggregate for why Kendrick is great. It's funny, people who listen to him are focused on intellect, but the things that they resonate with Kendrick for came about energetically. And there's things that are true without you needing a narrative to describe them, and you could just engage in those things. I think DS2 kind of represents that. Like, you could just be there energetically, and you don't have to watch it. I don't want this to spark the debate because I want to save that until we're like really there. But I think that the reason that you guys say like, oh, it's a generic thing, there's nothing special to it, is because of the part of you that likes To Pimp a Butterfly. You're like watching it, waiting for the concept to spark up. And I don't think things should be enjoyed by waiting for the new thing. That's actually why I don't like experimental music. Or I won't say I don't like it. Like, I enjoy some experimental music. I don't enjoy the culture of experimental music, and I don't enjoy the concept of making experimental music because I don't think it's creative to make things that sound new. In a sense, it is creative, right? Because you're making something that's out of the ordinary. You're, by definition, implementing a new idea. But when implementing something new just becomes the routine, you get away from the soul. And the soul is simply what you resonate with something. And if something is resonant, it doesn't need a new thing to be imposed. And that's my think on To Pimp a Butterfly. And I think this desire for new things to be imposed kind of build the plateau that, or like it builds the foundation for why there's like a barricade to you guys enjoying DS2. But that was my point on that.
So you resonate with Slave Master on DS2?
I don't resonate with the concept of it. I just energetically it lands upon me.
I'm just trolling.
I'm not watching it. I gave a 5 out of 10. I said at first I was like liking it. The introspective energy took me in the beginning, but as it like went on, I began to think about how introspective people don't consider self-esteem stimulating until it's like communicated about in a philosophy piece or in an art piece, and how that bothers me in general. And then that kind of like made me disapprove of the song. So it's like a 7 out of 10 on like an enjoyability level, but there's like a conscientiousness inspired disgust that I have with it, because some like self-esteem to me is something that you should work on like as a core, but I dislike so much how people listen to music like this where it's like he's being vulnerable and he's like talking about like his sense of self and he's communicating his inner critic, and in that moment they acknowledge this as something that's there, but they only acknowledge it because it's stimulating to them. And I think people listen to albums like this and they engage in intellectual activities through detachment, and I think that detachment takes on its own energy and makes you third person to your own life, and I think that becomes dangerous. So I don't like the overall energy of the track, so I disapprove of it. Although sonically it is impressive. All Right, I gave a 10 out of 10. The vocalization and instrumentation matched perfectly, and the meaning hit without being preachy. For Sale, I gave a 2 out of 10. And I said like the voices were terrible, and the beat just sounded cartoony to me. Mama, I gave a 6 out of 10. Hood Politics, I gave an 8 out of 10. How Much a Dollar Cost, I gave 5 out of 10. Like, it's a cool concept, but it just doesn't sound good. And this song is like totally through that like detachment, where the people that enjoy it, they talk about it like Shane was doing this because we listened to this before this started, and Shane was talking about this like, no, it's about this thing, it's about this concept, and I'll get to like why I'll cement why I don't like that mindset at the end of this. Complexion, I gave like a 6.5 out of 10. It wasn't anything special. Blacker the berry. Is that what I feel like
the blacker the berry, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I just said 4 out of 10. Like, it was just bad to me. It sounded bad. Mama Said was 8 out of 10. It was like subtle and sweet. I was 0 out of 10. That shit just sounded like really bad to me. And Mortal Man, I said, was 2 out of 10. It was like a meme. It was like Eminem level wannabe thought provoking. And this was gonna be like a debate point, but
you want to say? I think we're ready to get into it. Or no, Max thoughts. Did Max go?
Yeah. But okay. I just want to say this before we get into the debate, because I'm sure there's things I said there that you guys like want to challenge already. I had this example that I wanted to express. I don't consume art through narrative. Me and Shane had a call yesterday that was separate from art, where I was talking about how looking at things through narrative is dangerous, and like how ENFPs tend to be unproductive people, and they're addicted to narrative, and that addiction to narrative takes on its own energy and grows unhealthy habits and low energy in general. And the example I gave is like, Pimp a Butterfly to me is like watching a movie with bad acting and low aesthetic value, but liking it because it's a great concept. I feel like that's so detached from what's happening in front of you. And I feel like the way that you guys listen to DS2 is detached from what's happening in front of you. Because it's like you guys are watching it like, what's the new thing? Oh, this is just basic trap. And I don't like to think about things like, is it new? Is it new? Is it new? I think becomes reductive. And I don't think it's creative, because the reason why creativity hits is because it's not academic. And when you start doing new things just to make new things, or you're looking for certain aspects to be introduced, and then you say like, oh, it's just like, it's X archetype. When you do that with it, you go away from the point of art. Art is not academic. It can't be put in a rubric. And the reason that it hits home is because it's outside the bounds it's outside the binds of social conditioning. And to ignore the soul aspect of art, which is simply, when it's presented, do you resonate with it, misses the point of creativity entirely, and helps you to develop a neurotic attitude through music and possibly life in general. So I'll put that out there. I don't know if you guys want to respond to that, or if you guys want to throw anything else at me, but I wanted to drive that point home at the end of my To Pimp a Butterfly analysis.
Y'all ready to debate?
I'm ready. Yep. By the way, before you guys do challenge this, I want to say, I don't think Max listens to that. Like, I don't think Max's analysis of why he doesn't like it is the same as mine. He listens to it, and from what I can tell, I don't want to talk for you, Max, but it just seems like you're like it's just not something I would throw on. It's not something like I enjoy.
Yeah, I don't think it's like, I don't think that there's anything on there to me that's like horrendously bad. It's just not something I'm like, yo, I need to put on like fucking The Blacker the Berry or whatever that song's called. Like, I remember like the first time I listened to that album not liking that song, or I didn't even really like I never really quite understood the hype first.
I think we all agree the I version on the album.
No, but I've even listened to the other version. I'm not a big fan of that one either.
You're straight bugging. I don't know what's wrong with you mentally, but something is.
I just love Alan. Alan takes it to like a personal low. I love that it's like, okay, if you're the type of person to like To Pimp a Butterfly, you're just detached from yourself and you just don't understand like the da. I just love that. Yeah.
I would say the more thing that I find interesting about all this, because I agree. I think Max, you and Alan's take are very different in your opinion on To Pimp a Butterfly. But I think so is me and Leo's. Like, I shouldn't say I love. DS2 is a great album for me to turn on the background of. It is a vibe album that I deemed to be creative. I think I do have flaws with it because I think it battles with repetition and stuff like that, and that just to me is something that I'm just not personally interested in. But I don't think I have a song on that album that's under, besides Rich Sex, that's under 5
No, that
out
song
of
is so
10.
good.
So bad. And I understand Alan's critique of this album, of To Pimp a Butterfly. However, I maybe it's because I am in love with concepts, but that was the kind of view that I was. I think a lot of these songs, outside of their concepts, still are just as creative and just as flourishing. I think Wesley's theory, to some extent, is just a vibe. I think the issue with it is more the vocal inflections that try to grab you in, because it tries to get you so much to focus on the intention of it. So that might be a downfall flaw of it. But I think if we're talking about tracks like, hold on, I want to look at the track in front of me on my vinyl record because I love this album. I think if we're looking at songs like King Kunta, These Walls, All Right, The Blacker the Berry, and You Ain't Gotta Lie, I think all of those songs have great production that if I just put on the background of like a family cookout or a vibe, they could all just go.
That's something I was gonna say. I was gonna say if you play just the instrumentals from this album, like all the way through,
But
I
why
feel
does
like
it
that
have to
alone
just be
was.
the instrumentals though? Like that's.
I wouldn't even say just the instrumental.
I don't think they're saying that. They're just saying it as like a thought example.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that. I think You Ain't Gotta turn on with mom while she's cleaning the house and stuff, like with the lyrics and all. Like, I think I could say the same for The Blacker. It may be depending on the environment. I've never understood the meaning behind The Blacker. I know there's some deep racial like meaning, pride of being African American and stuff, and I, as a African American or half African American, should probably recognize that. I know that, but I genuinely just like Kendrick's voice on that beat. I love that beat. In the reggae like styled chorus, I think it's so freaking fire. It's just dope. It's like that's the way I'm trying to look at this album through that lens. And so I do think the concepts are dope. Talk about like how much $1 cost. I'm for sure like feeding into the narrative, or when I was explaining you For Sale and the stages of the album and stuff and how I was trying to listen to it. So yeah, I do think that aspect exists. But what I think is so creative about this album is that it can exist without that aspect. I think that's why it gets praised a lot. I do agree. But I think if I were to turn These Walls on, like at a family function, my parents aren't gonna know that this is a song about Kendrick how he's sleeping with some dude's girl who like
Because he's misusing his power.
Power. So yeah. But I think like it's just he performed it. I didn't even know. First time I played These Walls, found out because we awkwardly listened to the lyrics. But at first I just like, yo, this beat crazy, and played her my pops. So like I would do the same with, I think I served the bass. The Creek said it best himself. I served the bass just a fire beat. Like I could toss it to JPEG Mafia or like Tyler or someone. I'd still think that beat is just as fire, no matter whose approach to it. It's just a great production. And so I think Future's approach to it creates more of the vibe around it. But I'll say the same for Kendrick. You Ain't Gotta Lie is just like kicking like it's just a vibe. So I don't know. That's I do understand your hesitancy, Alan, but I feel like a lot of it is written with aspect of people outside have praised this album, and maybe people even within this little group, because I do think Leo kind of did for Zach when he was talking about like, bro, the concept of these songs are so dope, and I did it for you earlier today. But it's like I'm in love with these songs so much further past that, and I think that's maybe what's lacking is these thoughts aren't mutually exclusive, but I feel like with Future's album they can't coexist because that's not the intention of it.
Yeah, but the only thing that could spark a dialogue for the duration of this episode is a discourse around whether or not the sensibility is inspired, and if sensibility is inspired, what inspires sensibility. Because we can't make an episode where, say right now, if I was like, all right, guys, which sound do you like better? And I was like, and then I was like, okay, that's sound one. And then I was like, ooh, okay, what sound do you like better? Do you like the or the ooh? We cannot talk for an hour. I mean, maybe we can because we'll just find like funny ways to do it. But you can't talk for an hour about that. I think that I don't think that sensibility is happenstance. I think to a degree it is. But I think to say holistically it's happenstance is untrue and completely ignores the soul aspect of the way music is listened to. Music hits home because it hits a sensibility. So you have to have a sensibility for a particular piece of music to hit you. For example, I used to be a real hip hop head, and I killed the part of me that built that sensibility. I killed the part of me that would allow the sensibility for real hip hop sort of music to land upon me. And I think there's a specific sensibility that allows people to listen to the Butterfly and think it's the shit. I think there's a sensibility that allows people to listen to DS2 and think it's the shit. And I don't think I could communicate in a way where I could tell you guys that the people who have the DS2 sensibility are intellectually superior. But I do have a theory that the people who... I don't even really have a theory about DS2. It's completely about resonance. I do have a theory that people who glorify To Pimp a Butterfly are under a complex. And I think they're under the same sort of complex that like people who are addicted to their self-image are. I think it's the same sort of complex to people who mentally masturbate over Nietzsche books have.
But couldn't I argue that people who indulge in like DS2 or at least people who probably resonate with it on the level that maybe To Pimp a Butterfly people are possibly just hedonistic people?
Yeah, I was gonna make that. I didn't go this deep into. I didn't think it would go so deep into like if you're the.
I didn't think it was gonna go into so fast. I was gonna tell you why some of these songs were garbage.
I agree.
That's not
I
a
agree with
not
that.
A good point though. That's not a good point.
If you resonate with DS2, like there's some like horrible themes I would argue that Future talks about, and if you like listen to that, I don't know, I'd say you're like heathenistic or just
the reason that you guys are making that point is because of the sensibility you listen to music from. People who enjoy DS2 don't enjoy it from narrative. Neither Max or I partake in the things of DS2. Like, neither of us live that lifestyle. We listen to it from an aspect of soul, which doesn't to mean is the narrative hitting. Like, when I think of this song, and I think about real sisters, and I think about the fact that Future is fucking some real sisters, like two girls that are actually sisters. And I think about that, and I think about that concept, and I imagine that happening in my head. Yeah. People who enjoy it, we do not go down that path. We listen to it, and it hits. And it's like, the reason that people enjoy... Here's my theory of the Future sensibility. The reason why people who enjoy DS2 are the same reason... Like, it's the same reason why girls who enjoy, like, guys who are good at game enjoy their game. It's just the enjoyment of being in that frame. Like, you're allowing the experience to happen. He's talking about some shit that he's experiencing. Like, is it resonant in the way, like, does it sound good? And not resonant in the way of, like, does it sound good and can you just let it land and experience it? Not what is the narrative? Because experiencing it and listening to it is different than, like, taking it and then from that having a discourse. There's not really a discourse to be had about DS2. That's not the point of it.
No, I don't think... When I said that, I don't mean to disagree.
But okay. Before you make this point, I just want to say the hedonistic argument is a bad point because that's not why people who enjoy we don't enjoy. Maybe Max because he's a hedonist. I am super anti-hedonist.
This bro threw you under the bus so fast, bro.
I think people who enjoy To Pimp a Butterfly have developed a new form of hedonism. It's mental masturbation. It's the same. The reason people enjoy To Pimp a Butterfly is the same reason Creek enjoys Nietzsche books. It's mental masturbation. And I wrote a lot.
We finally get Creek to unmute. And he goes, hold on,
guys. No, he's breaking his no-fap streak right now. He's breaking his no-fap streak right now. I wrote a lot about that, but before Creek has a reputation, did you want to say your point, Shane, that I interrupted?
I was just gonna say I'm not speaking at all because I do agree with you that the mass people who are probably talking about this lens, To Pimp a Butterfly in this lens, probably do have some sense of like or apply themselves to some sense of mental masturbation. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm saying as people who I think all of us in here who have created art and created music, I don't necessarily want to word it within a way of that's going to be like I'm living for outside perspective or outside love or grasp because that's not what I mean. But I do think that there's like when you are self-valuing thoughts and you're putting them into your work, and other people also affirm that thought, even if you don't want or don't care if they do or don't, one, there's just something that's good about that. And I do understand what you mean by like people letting it hit them and just resonating, even if you disagree with like, if you don't partake in the action, you're just resonating with the vibe or whatever. But it's like, that's why I'd ask, in specific to the minority of people who, as in the minority of people who probably enjoy To Pimp a Butterfly the way I would argue of us can. Me, Leo, and Creek probably all listen to this beat by them. And we probably don't even like, not in every thought or concept agree with Kendrick. Or even like partake with the exact like experience or like fully like validate the experience. But we just think it's we just let it resonate. And so that's why I had brought up the hedonist point. I was talking specific to those people because if these fan bases are going to affect the way that we're listening to music, which it seems like to you they are, just like the way you talked about you and stuff, that would be my pushback. Is why don't you have that? Is it because it's such a or DS2 in this hedonistic lens? Is it because that minority exists?
Sorry, you cut out. Are you asking why? Like, are you asking why the challenge?
No, I was asking more. I was asking more the idea that it's like, I like Creed talk. I gotta collect my thoughts more because
I think you're asking me like, I think you're saying like there is a subset of people who do enjoy DS2 for the hedonistic aspect, and why does that not deter the way that
is it just because that's a subset, whereas compared to Pimp a Butterfly, it's probably a mass amount of people?
Yeah, I mean, I think the people that are, I think culturally the way that rap has expanded, most of the people who listen to rap tropes like that, like collecting material and having lots of sex and like living that sort of lifestyle, most of the people listening to that don't go and live that lifestyle. Like people who play Call of Duty, I don't think the concept of killing people is cool. I still play Warzone because I can allow myself to experience that reality. And I think that stands for the way that I listen to music in general. Like I've been listening to a lot of I forget what the genre is called. Is it like shoegaze? I think it's shoegaze. I've been listening to a lot of shoegaze, but it's like very like, it's like low vibrational shoegaze, and that the tone is like very like sad and suffering. And I don't resonate with it at all. Like I don't resonate with the narrative that the songs are coming from, but I can experience it. It's like listening to a sad person. Could you enjoy listening to a sad person talk even though you don't like resonate with that value? I don't take the sad person talking and take it like, oh, the narrative of being sad lands with me so much. At the same time, I can just experience that because it's like it's part of life. I think I could be engaged in that part of life. So similarly, I could be engaged. I can allow myself to experience this low vibrational hedonistic lifestyle that's explored in this album, and I can also allow myself to experience an album from like a Shaolin like monk rapper talking about like mindfulness and enlightenment. Although I think I'm somewhere in the middle of those two extremes.
All I'm saying is your DS2 argument reminds me of my little brother watching like Baby Shark or something. He's just sitting there experiencing the music and not taking it in. I don't know.
You gotta be thinking about it. You gotta be thinking about the music.
I think it's very I think it's brewed out of like, I mean, how would I put this? Your baby brother has not had his soul sapped away by things that would push him to detachment. So I think that part of him that experiences Baby Shark, that's the most pure aspect of him. And I think people start to lose that aspect of them through social conditioning, mental masturbation. He hasn't been introduced to mental masturbation yet. So I don't think the part of him that listens to Baby Shark and does sift with it, even though it's just sharks on a screen going do 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 do. I don't look at that like that's like, I don't look at it like he's stupid. I think even the he's stupid argument is like a detached way of listening to music. It's like people who listen to certain genres and they're like, people who listen to this genre are stupid, or people who always think about things in terms of genre, or anything like that. It's like it's detracting away from the soul of music to begin with and making it academic.
Okay. Creek wanted to
I think that's how you should listen to music.
Creek it done.
Creek.
Yeah. I don't think what I had to say is specifically attacked to what you guys are talking about now, but I just wanted to respond earlier to what he said. Um, yeah, so like I think I've said this before, but I think Kendrick could make a DS2 like, but I don't think Future can make it to Pimp a Butterfly because I don't think Future has any depth to him. I think he's a pretty shallow person in general.
I don't
So
think Kendrick can make it.
I think he could. I don't think what Future made is a specifically hard thing to do. But I think what Kendrick did was more courageous.
I think if Kendrick were to do something like that, it would come across extremely inauthentic, and it would not at all sound like.
Yeah, because he has a track record.
That's also
of being authentic. That's why it would come off as inauthentic.
This point of view is also derived from the academic aspect of engaging with creativity that I think kills the point of creativity. It's like, but could he do this? Like, is he skillful enough to do this? Could he improvise this new idea? Of course, Kendrick could do what Future is doing because it's a rubric that's already there. Kendrick's rubric is more impressive, and it's not the rubric that Future could live up to. I mean, would you not take it as offensive to the point of art if all of us, like, say if we were all in a class, all 5 of us, and we all had to make a jazz album, and there were like 5 certain standards on how to make the jazz album, and whoever had those standards, whoever like fit those standards the most was the person that like won a class competition or some shit. That misses the mark of art. And this whole like thing of like Future couldn't do what Kendrick does is of the same like rubric inducing mindset to art, which shouldn't be introduced to art.
Okay. Okay. I disagree with the idea that Kendrick made an album fully for the purpose of making it complex, and that was the whole point of the album. I don't think that was. And I think that's the point you're trying to make, that he sat there trying to craft this super complex album so everyone would be like, wow, Kendrick is this like really smart, introspective guy. I think it was derived out of him trying to express himself. And I think if he was trying to fulfill some sort of like intellectual idea that he was really smart, I think that would make it corny and not interesting. But I don't think that's what he was aiming for. I think it was just a natural outcome from what he was trying to like convey from his like experiences that he's had throughout his life. So
yeah,
I agree.
I would also.
I feel like to Pimp a Butterfly breaks more of a rubric. The argument is like to Pimp a Butterfly like kind of stays.
To break
the
rubric is another rubric though. Huh. There should not be a consideration of what is in the bounds and what's not in the bounds of the rubric. And I think you guys listening to DS2 saying it's nothing new and that Kendrick introduced new things is like a detached way of looking at art. It's a rubric based looking at art. Like, did he meet the standard of going beyond standards? That's still a standard. To think about art at all from standards is harmful. You should. So I have the extremist point of view of art should solely be made from what's resonant.
I just don't know DS2, but DS2 does execute some great tracks that I guess have been done before, but sometimes it doesn't execute tracks. Like we can take like Freako versus like Where You At or something. Like Where You At is executed very well. Well,
hold on, because I feel like we start arguing about how Where You At is. Like me and Alan were talking. He doesn't. Specifically,
that's
he doesn't
probably
like
one of my
Drake
least favorite. Yeah, that's probably one of my.
Yeah, I figured Max Ray doesn't.
Okay,
like
then let's.
It's not because of Drake. I don't
personally.
mind Drake, but it's like
this is semantic.
Everyone likes I Serve the
away
Bass.
From his point.
Let's take I Serve the Bass. I Serve the Bass is executed very well versus Freako.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Oh, my bad. That's just how I feel about like I think like what Future has done here, when it's done like right and executed well, I don't know how to describe that. I guess it's like certain songs just have that certain sound to it. When it is executed well, I really like it, but it just tends to be very mediocre at times and not executed well.
Okay.
I would also say real quick that go ahead. You can respond to him first.
Let's reverse engineer. You said what he was trying to do in I Serve the Bass. He did that better. He fulfilled that better than he fulfilled like Freako, for example.
Yeah.
Let's reverse engineer. Let's say he's about to make I Serve the Bass. So like he did what he was trying to do, right? What was your Future? What are you trying to do? You're gonna make I Serve the Bass right now. Tell me what you're trying to do.
I'm just going in the studio. He probably freestyle. I'm just trying to put out. I'm trying to resonate. I'm just trying to put out my energy onto the track. Yeah. I'm just trying to resonate. I'm gonna make something I resonate with probably.
Yeah. So he's like, all right, this beat's here, and I'm gonna come at it with this energy on the beat.
Yep.
I don't listen to music like that, and I don't think like it's like, oh, there's this energy that has to be came with at the beat. I think that's reductionist to the point of art.
Yeah, but you make music like that.
I make music from what I feel.
Exactly. You feel something, and you feel something because you resonate with the production, typically. And you just go in there and do it, and then you almost end up developing.
When I find beats, I have an idea. Like, I'm feeling this. I want to convey this.
A concept.
Where's the mood? Yeah, but it's not like, I don't think about it like, did I hit the concept? You're introducing that. The concept element is there. I don't consider that. That's something that's going to be there, but it shouldn't be considered, because as soon as like you monitor, is this hitting a concept? Is the concept new? Did he bring about this new concept well?
I agree. No, I'm not trying to get real agree, but I'm saying like that's the area of what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the idea of like, did I hit the concept artistically or from a fan's perspective. What I'm more talking about is a fan recognizing the concept. If an artist goes in with an intention of a song and a fan recognizes that, like I said, I do understand that we're talking that a lot of these Kendrick fans are hyping, but for me, like, I can't even say that like this is how I think I enjoy most of my music that is concept based, because I do think I heavy focus on concept. But not all my music is. I wouldn't listen to electronic music that's mental if I did. I don't think there's a concept there. It's just enjoyment. A lot of it is it's supposed to be dance music. And I think that's what Future is almost doing here with his project. It's just dance music. And I don't think concepts are long lasting, I should say. But I also, or I shouldn't say long lasting, but I mean like preclude or emphasize something to the point of legendary status. I bring that up because I think music without noticed intention gets tossed away a lot faster. And that's not to say that that's a good thing or a bad thing. I just think it's kind of, there's a lot of songs I forget that just like, I'll go back and say like, oh, this is a good song years later, but it was easily forgettable because it just didn't attach to me. And I'm not saying it needs concept to attach to me, because there's songs I love that don't have concept. But more than that is, as an album or a body of work, I shouldn't be tested. And I feel like DS2 tests me and the idea of how long can I deal with this? How long can I hear the exact same style track? How long can I hear the exact same track over and over and over again? Whereas I would argue sound and a sonic concept to Pimp Butterfly, I'm not trying to give it diversity or brownie points for diversity, but I'm saying that diversity helps a project or an artistic endeavor become more engageable and noticeable.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point. Yeah, like, why can't I just listen to like the song for like its narrative? Like, I think it's a cool. Like,
well, I'm not saying like do that. I'm not saying do that.
We know why he.
Okay, I'm doing that. I don't care. I'm doing like.
I'm not saying that's bad. I don't think that's bad.
I was gonna make this point because based on the introductory statements to DS2 and to Pimp a Butterfly, your emphasis, at least like in what you said, I know how you listen to it is similar to how Creek and Leo listen to it, because I listened to it with you. But your thesis that we're using as grounds for the debate was not about concept or things being new. That's not what you said. Creek and Leo did talk about concept and things being new. So if you're not the person to make the counter argument about things being new, because you're not the person who made the argument to begin with. I'm not trying to get you to come to a consensus on something you didn't tell me you weren't on a consensus to. I have no reason to believe that you're like that we're competing on this specific topic. Leo and Creek did tell me something though that reminded me of this in their introductory statements, so I had to engage with it. But again, like, I guess to respond to what you said, like it's just saying like when I listen, you're basically putting this down of like when I listen to DS2, it starts to get repetitive and I don't enjoy that. So there's certain sensibilities you have that act as the dictation as to whether or not you like the song, and repetition is one of them. So my whole thing is like, should that be something that's considered? And your refutation seems to be something like, well, that's something that's considered like instantaneously. That's just going to happen naturally. And I would say I would argue that it's more derived from surrounding characteristics than just that instant sensibility. And that's what my whole argument is to begin with. But I think me and you have a slimmer gap between us than me and like Leo and Creek right now.
Yeah.
Because Leo just asked like, why should I listen to it through narrative? Like, from what you've said, like you just made an argument like, okay, like you have a point, but you're missing the mark here with your point. Leo's like, that's not a good point. Why can't I just da-da-da? So I think the debate should be more through this. And I love Max has had a lot to argue for with like Max has been going in on y'all, by the way.
Oh hell yeah, bro.
Oh.
Hilarious. I passionately hate To Pimp a Butterfly.
Stop.
I passionately hate it. It's the worst.
Okay, so I think that I should just put the sensibility thing, like I should just explain it because I had a note and we've been going on long enough about this where I should say this because I think clarifies it. I think I could, because I think sensibilities make, to some degree, there's always going to be like if you show me two colors, I'm just going to like a color more. Now there may or may not be sensibilities even to that make me like the color more. There might be, but I think most of us, including me, would agree that there's a part of you that just has aesthetic sensibility. We couldn't have a podcast about that. There's nothing to discuss about that. The only thing for us to discuss is the things that do like change or curate sensibility. And I think the things that could, not saying they absolutely do, but based upon what you guys said, I think it does. And based upon like way that people who listen to it in general do, I think it does. I just think it could go in a kind of productive way. So I'll make this point about sensibility. There's two ways to consider sensibility. One is that it's happenstance and baseless and that taste only represents taste. Another is that taste infers something about said person that has the taste. As in there's a why to your taste as certain traits that you have or develop that may usher in new taste. And I think people who listen to Pimp a Butterfly and say the kind of things that you guys did, and detract DS2 and say the kind of things that you guys did, not so much Shane, but to a degree Shane, but more so you and Creek, I think the way that you guys listen to it comes from a sense of detachment that I don't just think goes to music. I think it goes into other areas as well. And this isn't a philosophy that I've curated enough to where I could break down everything to you. So it's going to be very theoretical, and we're just going to have a theoretical, semantical conversation about it. But I do believe it now, and I'll develop, I'll explain it later in my life, but I see it for now. So I'll explain the energy later. Right now, I'm just seeing the energy. By the way, I also want to say, like, music is primarily energetic. So when you get away from the energy, you're missing the point of the music. There's like a lot of people that don't even watch basketball, but they listen to like a bunch of basketball like videos and shit or podcasts, and it's like you don't actually enjoy it. Not to say that it's wrong to do that, but it's like you don't actually enjoy the thing. You enjoy like the concept of the thing, and that can become dangerous in other areas of life. So I'll say this: when a philosopher describes something, they get engaged in the description. They like people who like philosophy, they overlook things like inspiration until Nietzsche describes it. They overlook things like self-esteem until Nietzsche describes it. So say in like their actual life, right? Like this is a trait that I see in people who like philosophy, and I think people who like philosophy would tend more towards the Pimp a Butterfly, and I think that you guys have the same element in you that makes you tend towards the Pimp a Butterfly. People who are engaged in philosophy, let's say like inspiration. So like maybe they're like in the gym, right? And they're shooting hoops they miss a shot, and they just like stop playing because they're like, I'm bad, I'm just gonna stop playing, whatever. Like, why would I, you know? And then somebody's like, yo, bro, like, keep doing it, like, you get better, and they just keep it at that. People who tend towards this, people who have whatever trait this is that I'm talking about that I haven't completely like clarified to myself yet, people who have this trait, you'll tell them like, do it, and they're like, eh. Like you see them shun, like you see them shrug. Self-esteem. There's several people in my life, several people I know who tend towards philosophy and mental masturbation that have low self-esteem, and like say we're in public and they're being very quiet, or I do something and they're like super embarrassed that I did the thing, and now they're all in their head. I'm like, bro, like, be more self-validated. You're too much in other people's frames, man. Like, be here. And they're like, yeah, man, like whatever. Or like they hate themselves and their self-hate like breeds into their life. And like I tell them this at some point, they're like, yeah, whatever. Then Nietzsche describes this 5-page thing about inspiration and how these sources are taking inspiration away from you, and why out of the nothingness in front of you, you should still find some source of inspiration. And then all of a sudden, the people who have the trait you guys have are like, wow, inspiration. Or they're like, wow, self-esteem. They're engaged in the description of the thing they engage in, not so much the thing. So Future, like DS2 is like a lifestyle. Pimp a Butterfly is like, here's excerpts of a lifestyle, here's introspection of the lifestyle, attachment. There's an element of detachment in it. And wow, the description. Wow, low self-esteem, like you, inner critic. Wow, this is creative because he's doing this new thing. People who have that trait, like, I don't think that I could challenge the sensibility. I can't challenge whether or not you guys like the beat or whether or not you like his voice sounds. All I can challenge is the possibility that there's something that feeds that sensibility. And I could say, like, the thing that feeds that sensibility can take you down an unhealthy path, so I'm not going to feed that sensibility, although I believe that I could create a sensibility to Pimp Butterfly. I think it's conceivable, very possible. People who have this trait are like, wow, the concept. And when they say, wow, the concept, they're saying the thing. But when the thing is right in front of them, their brain doesn't turn on. They don't engage. So why would that be? And now we're getting, like, psychoanalytic, but whatever. Like, why would that be? Like, why would they not engage? I think it's very simple, the reason they don't engage. Because if you actually engage in the thing, there's clear opportunity cost to engaging in the thing. That's it. So, like, why does anybody disassociate? Because they went through trauma, they don't want to experience life anymore, so they disassociate. Why would anybody detach? Because being engaged has pain to it. Because I would say naturally we are engaged. Naturally we're Rowan's little brother, or we're Leo's little brother, watching Baby Shark like, ah. And then we grow detachment because there's things that inspire detachment. And I think that listening to things from detachment, or I think reading philosophy books and mentally masturbating, I think that grows a wrong thing. I've said a lot, so I know you guys want to respond. I have to say one more thing. Like, people who listen to The Pimp a Butterfly, it explores many different concepts, and you could only like the concepts if they're resonant. So people would get confused by me saying, like, I listen to things through resonance. But if you can be resonant about that many things, then how engaged are you in those things? Like, the things that he's talking about are so complicated that if you were to actually focus on them and engage in them in your life and try to integrate them successfully, it would take long periods of time to do so. So if instead of like just sitting with the track, like a track from there, you listen to the whole thing and all of the variation, you're like, wow, this, da, da, da. You're in the concept. You're in the narrative. What's wrong with me being in the narrative? Being in the narrative is a detachment. It's not the thing. It's the picture of the thing. It's like watching porn instead of getting the girl. And when you're in the narrative, you get the same dopamine that you would by being in the actual fulfillment of what the narrative is encompassing. So being within the narrative takes you away from the thing and inherently makes you detached. So I think it's a dangerous sensibility to feed.
Who wants to respond to that? Creek? Come on, you're the wise one. Great. There you go.
Wait, why am I responding to it?
Because you're the wise one. I just told you.
Okay, I can respond to what you said, the thing about philosophy, and you always do this. I don't understand. I swear you have like a preconceived notion about what people who are into philosophy do, and you just assume like they're just like they have like these neckbeard like nerds who just sit at home and read like philosophy all day, and they don't have any motivation, and they get all their motivation from like I don't know what other people say, and like so for them to like appreciate an idea, they have to hear it from someone who has social social like what approval, or like they have some sort of like
Acuity.
acuity. Yeah. So, but I don't. I mean, yeah, those people exist, but I don't think that encapsulates everyone who listens to albums that are quote unquote deep. And I know what you're talking about, but I don't think it's like I don't think. Also, I don't understand like the thing you said about you. Well, why would you like that song less because of the reception it gets by fans? I mean, how's that reflective in any way of the work that Kendrick releases? I mean, he doesn't. He has no like tangible control over how his music is consumed, right? So why would that lower or like affect the way you perceive a song because of the way people consume it? I think that's kind of like a common thing in the way you see like a lot of projects. Like I think it's kind of even the way you see like what's his name? What's that fucking Blade? Yeah. Because I know you hate Blade. Like yeah, Blade.
I
Like,
don't hate Blade. I don't hate Blade. I haven't even listened to Blade, so I don't.
You know, but you have like I don't know, you have like a tendency to not like that whole Ring Yang thing because of the fans, and I agree. I mean, like the fan base for that band sucks, but like how's that a reflection of like the music that they release? I mean, they can't really control who resonates with their music, right? So why is that a reflection of their music? I don't get that.
Okay, so the next episode that we're doing after this is Carl Jung. And Carl Jung was big on archetypes. And one of the things that Carl Jung said was that archetypes are unavoidable. And you could track that down to meaning that archetypes, like there's symbols that universally mean something to us. There's symbols that have common receptions. So there's an individual reception, and then there's things that hit the heart of men in general. Christ is the archetype. An archetype of absolute truth, absolute love. So he represents the universal thing within all of us. So if I commentate on Christ, archetypes are unavoidable. If he's supposed to represent something that's among all of us, I commentate on him. I'm going to be communicating from a heart of us. I'm going to be communicating from sense of mass man because we're talking about an archetype. Archetypes are unavoidable. So I do think that there's a mass man in men. And I think the character traits that I see in these people who engage with these things represents not just them, but people in general. And I think that they are an archetype. And I don't think that they're like a specific archetype, because I think both human beings are individual, and archetypes can become neurotic and borderline disrespectful to the individuality of human beings. I do think that we're similar enough to where we could develop similar sensibilities. So when somebody has a sensibility, there's certain things that preempt that sensibility. And those things that they've taken on to have that sensibility have their own energy, and that energy can have its own negative effects. And so like, I think that's the reason why when I listen to you and I say the self-esteem thing, that's what makes me hesitant about that. Let me bring that up again. Like, my view of philosophy isn't from me going on Reddit and thinking, like, projecting what they do in their real life. I've been interested in like personal growth and human nature for years. Leo's known me since I was a kid. I'm an adult now. I don't have like an ego around being an adult, but like I'm an adult now. Since a jit, I've been running since a jit.
He a grown ass man now.
I've been interested in human nature. So I've been exploring it for a long time, and I've met variations of people, and I've met archetypes. Now I don't think that my experience of human beings is absolute. I don't think I know everything, and I think there has to be flaws and gaps in the way that I see things. But I also have to see things. Like, it's a necessity to see things. So I can't be like so interested in that I have no beliefs. Like I have to see shit. So like I'm open to the concept that like there's a flaw in the way that I see shit, and that I'm misinterpreting this. But from what I've seen, and like I believe it so much, and I've seen it so much that I think people that contest this are simply like contesting it because they're disallowing themselves to see what I'm seeing because they want to engage in the thing. Like you guys said the thing about DS2 being related to hedonism earlier. I think To Pimp a Butterfly and philosophy is like how fucking like going to a baseball game, eating a hot dog is hedonistic for an ESFJ. Reading Nietzsche talk about inspiration for 10 pages, that is hedonistic for an intuitive type. It's the thing that grabs them. Now, it's not inherently bad. Like it's not inherently bad, right? It's like having some sort of mental masturbation. But when you take it as a personality, and the people who like this do tend to like have a personality, like the way that people listen to music, they put like the music that they listen to on their social medias. They're like, look at what I'm listening to. I fit into this subset. Like Drain Gang is, I'm into this. Like this represents me. People who make it their personality, that does take on its own energy. And so what I've seen in people who engage in philosophy is time and again, me being like, let's get the thing. And they're like they can't engage in the thing. When somebody describes the thing, they're engaged in the description. So what is the plot from the thing to the description? And on the most basic level, you could say it's like a lack of depth, right? Because you could say, like, you could look at it from that very linear point of view and just say, like, the reason that people who like the philosophy thing, the reason that they like it more than people who like just are inspired is because they're smarter. They're just smarter because the people who are inspired, they're not even capable of that. And I would say, like, yeah, that would definitely make a lot of sense if the people who were inspired also were engaged. Because that would say, like, they have the first thing and the other thing, but they're lacking in the thing other people are inspired by. So I don't think intelligence is the difference, and I don't think depth is the difference between, like, to correlate it, an enjoyment between To Pimp a Butterfly and DS2. I don't think that's the difference. I think actualization is healthier for you than intellect. And intellect breeds detachment. And from detachment, you can't be in the heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter is the matter. So that's what we're all chasing as being matter, aka human beings. So the more that you engage in intellect, the more detached you get. And especially when you engage in it like as a hobby. And especially when you pray to it to the point where you would genuinely be able to confide in the concept that like Pimp a Butterfly is more enjoyable because it has more depth. It hits new things. That's detached, away from resonance, and it's like from the basis of life, it misses the mark.
So, I do wanna. Let me try and think if I can make a really weird set of jump. One, what I'm about to do, I'm gonna try and bring some humor back. But I'm gonna by doing that by making really vague correlations, nothing to do with each other. But but I'm gonna do it because I think it'd be a decent way to hopefully bring everyone closer to a similar page. So what it sounds like your view on philosophy is like, it reminds me as a Christian, of my pessimism or pessimistic dislike towards the church sometimes.
That's such a good point. I already know where you're going with that too.
However,
Makes a lot of sense.
I don't know necessarily if you will resonate with the energy, because you're outside of it. I hope you would though. So there's a quote from Charles Spurgeon, who's a famed pastor who I highly admire. Charles Spurgeon has this quote that's like, I wish I could remember it. Something like, "Do not hate, or do not hate the church." And it's he basically is focusing on the idea that it's like, because Christ loved it, you know, and the idea that I think people assemble under these ideologies and focus on these ideas of mental masturbation within the aspect of philosophy and stuff is, and I'm not saying you're unloving or unempathetic to those people, but I do think you're quick to write off ideas because of your disdain for the culture that they adapted them, just like I am with Christians in the church and stuff like that. However, I do think I struggle to fight daily to love something God loves. And to tie all this back, God is mentioned more in Pimp, therefore it's a better album. Thank you for.
Yeah. So, in response to that, the way that, like, the reason to make this accessible to viewers that you don't resonate with the church is basically because it's the same reason I don't like philosophy. Is that they make points of the matter tropes instead of engaging in the things. And people that engage a lot in cultural Christianity, they get really engaged about a passage about love, but in their actual life, they're not loving, to put it simply. And I have the same point about philosophy. Like, they get really welled up when Nietzsche talks about inspiration, but in real life, when inspiration's right in front of them, they don't see it. And I agree with the point of view that these people should be respected, and I don't think I think they should be loved. But to love somebody is not to engage in the same things as them. So it's like, sinners should be loved. You shouldn't sin. If we had a debate about being lustful or not being lustful, like, it's like, you shouldn't be lustful, and we could have a conversation about like what the sensibilities to you being lustful would be and how to break those sensibilities and why those sensibilities could be dangerous. And while having that conversation, we can still respect and love the people of the thing on a Christ-like level, because like Christ being a representation of like the best in us is you love that person because you think at their core they're good. And I do think at somebody's core, when they engage in mental masturbatory things like church culture, or in my opinion, to pimp a butterfly, or not inherently, but like with the consensus, course, yeah. Or like Nietzsche books, like I love these people. I do. I do love them, but they're missing the mark. So I could love them from like, like I could say, like, by them listening to this and engaging in the concept and resonating with the concept, like, the thing is still there. Life is still there. Even if it's a picture of life that they're looking at instead of life, at least there's still something there to life, and it shows that intent. And at their heart, they're good. And because universally we all aim for these things, because archetypes are unavoidable, because we all aim for these things, I can say we're all good. I love us. I don't see how that's correlative to the conversation.
So what I would say is how it's correlative is, I think within the aspect, there are things about church culture that I dislike, disdain, not necessarily because of what they are at its core, but the way people engage with them. And so that's what I would say is, I think your gripe or issue with the creation or sonic sound of To Pimp a Butterfly, a lot of it, I think Creek is right, might be predicated on the things that you've disliked. I don't think narrative is bad. I think the way we engage with narrative is bad. And I'm curious, like, not to you, but I'm curious, like Kendrick, if he was creating art with a narrative to bring, I do think he was trying to bring attention to the narrative, but I wonder if it was a prime objective, because that way I think, and I don't want to get objective with art. I feel like that can just, be crazy. I mean, I guess I do, because we're over here talking about better doing some butterfly. We are getting some butterfly, yeah. But anyways, but I say that to say, like, narrative isn't bad. It's the way we engage with it. And so it's like, if the engagement is what is a deter from what makes an album so good, like, I just would check the way,
narrative in itself isn't bad, but people who become fanatic about narrative are usually unproductive people.
Agreed. Yeah. And so that's
similar. Okay, like Pete's whole point about like the why the consensus, basically. I know that's not exactly his point. I'm summarizing it, but why the consensus, right? Because it's a debate episode. I have to reiterate this. Like before the episode, Creek was like, I mean, I just like they're different albums. Like, why even compare them? And you could make that point. And I've acknowledged this before. You could literally just say like, you like it or you don't. What's there to discuss? If we went with that, we couldn't make a podcast. So I like, in a pragmatic sense, the consensus is important to discuss for the matter of the podcast. Now, as to why that would deter the way that I experienced the Pimp a Butterfly is because I think the consensus of it, like the people who enjoy it, the consensus of it is derived from how the art is made and how it was intended. And I think how the art was made, I think it was made with enough narrative and enough like attention to enough narrative and enough attention to like introducing like new things for the sake of introducing new things that it diminishes the soul of it and it becomes less of something you could like less of something that's there to experience for me, and it bleeds through music. And I'm just saying like there's sensibilities in me that make it to why that bleeds through to me. And obviously I have the sensibility of not liking To Pimp a Butterfly, so I believe in my sensibility. The sensibility could be wrong though. But yeah, I just think like the way it bled through and the things that read to it, when you see them in actuality, those people tend to be unproductive. Like there's so many like Max, my boy, I love you. But Max, for an example, there's been like me and Max have talked about Max and like hedonism for in a long time. And there's been times where like Max I'm very thoughtful about archetypes, and I'm like, I've seen this enough to where I'm not going to do it. I'm very good at learning from other people's mistakes. The low to always being like, how do I feel, is that one, it's just like self-absorbed. And because every high has a corresponding low. I'm not saying it's absolutely bad. I'm saying it has these lows. It makes you self-absorbed, and it diminishes your ability to learn from other people's mistakes to the point that you make needless mistakes. And I just observe other people making mistakes, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I see this archetype, I see this energy, I'm not doing that. So Max used to be very big on like Max wanted to introduce self-growth into his life or work on certain things, and say self-esteem. He'd be like, I think I could still work on my self-esteem if I do X thing. And I'm like, bro, the people who do X thing do not work on their self-esteem. And if you do X thing, you're going to end up not working on your self-esteem. And I'm not saying the focus group of one makes way for an objective representation of humanity in general. But I do think this tends to be the result. So I'm going to go away from this because I think the tendency is negative. What happened with Max is he still did those things where I was like, bro, if you do those things, you're probably not going to focus on self-esteem, and it's going to take on its own negative energy. And that was 2 years ago. And right now, 2 years later, we're still talking about the same things with Max. So I think that's why I think that's why the consensus plays a part.
Hey, I don't disagree. I want to get to some point of I think we've kind of laid out our foundations on why. I don't know if we mostly agreed which one was better than the other, or which album was better, but
it's still 3-2. I don't think I think like the point of this podcast is just like to have air there. This is not going to end in anybody's minds being changed, because even in my theory, I'm saying like there's behavioral cues that lead to those sensibilities, and I don't think the behavioral cues are like changed fast enough for you guys to be like, for any of us to be like, hey, you know what? I don't like this album anymore. That's not going to be the end result of
it. No, for sure. Creek, Leo, Max, anything y'all want to add? Anything y'all want to say? Y'all been quiet.
Yeah, I think the argument is like reaching like a dead point, so we could like begin, wrap it up. But if you guys have anything else that you want to introduce.
Damn, I'll take that as a...
I don't have anything further to add.
Leo?
Yeah, I also want to say, just so people remember, Max is not like putting a stamp on my argument, bro. Max is like dissertation.
Max is
No,
like
my feelings
there.
My feelings.
I have a controversial singular.
Yeah,
reason.
I don't agree 100% with Alan about it. Like, he enjoys DS2 for very different reasons than me, I feel.
Oh, so wait a minute. That's interesting. Do you think that you enjoy DS2 for the hedonistic like narrative aspect of it?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't think I'm like.
I fully disagree. No, you don't. I doubt that. Because I don't think you listen to lyrics. It's the same reason you like Cardi and stuff. You just enjoy the vibe that.
Yeah,
I had a theory about this. This is interesting. I had a theory. I had a theory about him because Max told me he was listening. Me and Max were playing Minecraft. He told me about his first time listening to DS2, and he was like, "I was on a walk or some shit." And
no,
I
was in Florida. I was in Florida.
Yeah. I was like, why are there like all of these like? I thought like, why are there like there's so much music that Max listens to that on a narrative level is like different than like Max, you know what I mean? And I'm like thinking like in real life, like Max is like this like timid, shy character, that like lacks abrasiveness. But Max listens to a lot of abrasive music, and I had this theory. I was like, does Max like this music because in this music is the only time when he can experience like what this feels like? Like with Kanye, right? Like Max loves Kanye, and like the self-esteem aspect of Kanye, he like loves. So I was like, does Max like love that shit so much because like a state transfers like type shit, he feels self-esteem emanating from Kanye, and like that's the time when he can experience something that part of him wants to experience?
No, that's interesting. I guess I've never really thought of it like that, but
I don't think it's that deep with you. I feel like if I psychoanalyze a lot of the music.
No, I don't think I listen to DS2 in specific from like a narrative level. I don't think I'm sitting there like.
No, but I don't even know if I would say you. I wouldn't even say you listen to it to like kind of like. Maybe the only aspect is to live out comp. Like maybe, but I really just think that you hear the best approach of beats. Like even when you listen to Cardi and like I will say maybe it's a little more leaning towards Alan's way now, because I remember we had you and me had that debate about. You and I had that whole debate about. I was like, bro, this track would be so much doper with drums. I think this is just because I wanted to vibe out. For me to vibe out to it. Doesn't feel like it has resolution, but I do think you're now starting to figure out what you need to be artistic, and also these artistic things. So maybe he's right in the aspect of evidence, but I don't know if it's that deep. I don't think it's that deep.
I think for DS2 in specific, nah. I really fuck with it from like an aesthetic kind of point of view. But yeah.
For sure.
Okay, to wrap it up and just have a closing statement, because I've basically been the representation on my side. I think the overarching refutation to me, in my point of view, is why does the consensus of it like fuck with you that much? And that's like the closing, or like that's like the overall like challenge. I think I've challenged this challenge here, so you already know what like my response would be. Whether or not that's adequate to the viewers, up to the viewer. And I would say that the people who like to Pimp a Butterfly and their end thing is like whatever, I'm still gonna like. I think it's from I think it's purely from hedonistic will, specifically detachment, that drives that sensibility. Not purely, that's an exaggeration, but partly, and it's the part that would allow a conversation this long to even flourish. So for conversational purposes, that's what drives the sensibility.
I just want to say for a closing thought, like, shit don't change until you get up and wash your ass. Like,
boy,
like that's a Kendrick quote. Shit don't change till you get up and wash your ass. So that's what I would invoke all these listeners to do. I need y'all to get out y'all beds, okay? Stop listening and go wash your ass. Okay, that's what Jesus would want you to do. That's what Kendrick.
Next episode is gonna be a special. about Creek's fetishes. Intertwined with a Carl Jung deep dive. And I'm excited to see you guys there. Like, subscribe, comment, show to your friends, antagonize us. We love you. Peace out.